Welcome to The Disruption Is Now. Join us on this enlightening journey as we explore how AI is impacting our jobs, careers, lives, and the human experience. Each episode, host Greg Matusky will converse with visionaries and innovators at the forefront of AI, diving into its challenges, opportunities, and impact. So buckle up as we venture into the heart of disruption, and together, let's unfold the future.
Well, we're back with our last episode of the day from Money20, and this time we're doing it from the MoneyPot, the beautiful MoneyPot at the middle of the show center. So I'm really excited about our final guest of the day, Jed Dougherty. He works for a company called Dataiku. Did I say it right? Or Dataiku?
You said it right.
Okay, great. And he's working with different companies and helping them to scale and use AI within their organizations. I'm interested because that's really the heart of everything right now. We've done a lot on the technical side, but tell me a little bit about your experience and how you're helping companies to actually use AI as and deploy it within their organizations.
Yeah, so we've really seen from the advent of LLMs coming out 3 years ago now, 2023, beginning of 2023, we had these fundamental building blocks that we all seem to pretty much quickly realize we're going to change the way that we would be working for the foreseeable future. We've spent a lot of the next 3 years trying to figure out how we combine these building blocks together into sustainable, productionalizable systems that will actually augment the way people work, right? It needs to be not just a toy, but something that has an ROI and successful. I kind of liken this process to, everybody loves these analogies, but the Industrial Revolution. So Industrial Revolution, you have the invention of the steam engine in like the 1770s. And it's not until, let's say, 1903, Model T, that we have the fully actualized assembly line and businesses being absolutely and completely transformed. I don't think this one's going to take 130 years. I think this one's going to take more like 5. But we're still in that process of turning an individual steam engine into a fully recognized assembly line.
Well, let's go back. Before our segment today, we were talking a little bit and you had brought up the issues of shadow AI. That's something I had never heard of before. And I was interested in getting your opinion on what you're talking about, how it's impacting the enterprise.
Sure. So to understand why shadow AI is such a challenge, it's kind of important to recognize how different Gen AI is from prior uses of AI. So like early AI, we just say it's like predictive models, classification, regression, stuff that's been around for 40 years. That was what we talked about, machine learning in the 2010s. All of that came from academia to, let's say, data scientists or statisticians who then applied it into the workplace. And many people never even knew that AI was being done to them or on their data, or that the choices that businesses were making were derived from some type of model. But now with Gen AI came the opposite direction. Gen AI started as, it's the fastest growing app of all time, right? ChatGPT.
Sure.
Faster than Facebook,
sure.
Faster than TikTok, faster than Twitter, whatever. So here, everybody already has the AI. They're already using it and they already love it. And if you're a business, you have no choice but to provide an alternative to those consumer applications, or every person in your organization will be doing shadow AI. In other words, plugging your business information into their phones and into consumer apps.
But not just sharing it. They'll all have a different operating procedure. There'll be no efficiencies among people. There'll be no shared value. I know I was early to the AI revolution for my industry, Jed, in the public relations industry. When AI first came out and they first saw ChatGPT, they saw it as a threat. They saw it as a threat to their expertise, their hourly billing, their productivity. And I saw it as a great tool, a tool that could help me teach other people how to communicate well. And so we adapted quickly and used it. And I realized at that point that this was not like social media. Social media was brought in by young people into my field, right? They came to us already using Facebook, and we adapted to it. I realized this was much more important and much more serious. So we assumed the leadership to become as expert as we possibly could as far as LLMs. We're not on the technical side, but LLMs. And then we created an environment where people felt safe to experiment and share the experience. And that was the enabling. Plus, we did it in a way, Jed, that we never talked about productivity. We talked about bringing career skills to people. And that seemed to be much easier for them to come to terms with. How do you do it as in your business? How do you get that behavioral change? Because I think that's really where we're at.
It is a behavioral change. I think one critical component of it is you can't just give people, I think you said it very well, just a consumer version of an LLM and let them go off into their kind of own world and have no cohesion or built-in business information.
No guardrails.
No guardrails.
No expertise.
Exactly. You have, however long your business has been around, you have accumulated knowledge in that business, and whether that's knowledge in the form of data or in the form of documents or in the form of machine learning models that you've been building for 30 years, and isolating the Gen AI or the LLMs from the accumulated knowledge of your business and expecting them to be fully effective is just, it's not going to work.
That is really important. I think people don't realize that. And those that give up on AI, they don't understand that there has to be a connection. Has to be a connection between the subject matter expertise of the enterprise or the individual, the professional, and the model. Otherwise, you just get empty, vapid results. So go into that a little bit. How do you connect it?
Yeah, you hear a lot of people say, oh, this AI just made something up and hallucinated. It's like, well, you didn't give it the opportunity to tell the truth.
Right.
Give it the chance to have the right information. You can't just expect it to magically make it up. There's this tendency, because when you talk to Gen AI, it's by default quite confident about itself, to assume that it can do more than it can. And what it is really good at is understanding language and making connections, making summarizations of language. But it is not the thing that you want to have, like, let's say, predicting your revenue for next quarter. You want a business model that does that. You want a machine learning model potentially that does that. And you just need to give the AI the access to that underlying component.
So let's talk about the models you use when you deploy them in agentic AI, or what are you building for your customers, and then how are you making it available throughout the enterprise in order to scale the use of it and see real ROI or see real results?
So Dataiku is really a platform in which we want our customers to be building their own agentic workflows. What we've seen is that having these tools in the hands of end business users is critical. Let's imagine you have like a 50,000 person company. Of that 50,000 person company, 45,000 people in that company probably have some idea of how to use ChatGPT. And if you provide them with an interface through which they can connect business tools into a chain, they will be able to augment their work and do faster, better jobs, and indeed come up with new ideas that then can be distributed to the rest of the organization. Obviously, you need a lot of guardrails in place there to have it be successful, but I firmly believe that every person in an organization can use these tools to benefit their workdays. Now, if let's say we have the other 5,000 people in our organization, 4,000 of them are maybe your data scientists, your analysts of today, who are going to be able to build the tools that everyone else is using. And then maybe your last 1,000 people, those are the folks who are going to need to be your regulatory body. You need AI regulation, you need AI governance. If you're going to let 50,000 people build stuff, somebody better be watching, and somebody better be keeping track of what's going on.
So tell me about the governance. Where does that reside? How is it created? And then how is it I hate to use the word, but imposed?
Yeah. So we can kind of think of like an architectural stack of the LLMs being at the very bottom. And then in between the LLMs and even the agents, or the ways you're combining them together, you need an AI gateway, for lack of a better word. This gateway needs to impose regulations and guardrails. So think about like toxicity detection, PII detection, prompt injection detection, masking, and full auditability and full traceability, so that you know what every employee is doing and how they're using it and whether it's being abused, and being able to adapt if something's going wrong. That's kind of your day-to-day immediate governance, but then you also need a governance in that I would consider more a workflow governance. So as let's say I'm rolling out an agent across my entire organization. I need governance that tells me exactly who approved the agent, which steps were taken to say, essentially, we're putting a new augmented workforce. What's the documentation? If it's touching any financial things, is it abiding by existing financial rules? If I ever get audited, do I have everything that I need here in order to not get hit by the FCC or in Europe, the EU AI Act? You really do need that extra layer as you roll these out.
And what's the feedback loop on that, so that once it's built, it can be self-correcting or corrected by members of the enterprise?
That's great. I almost think of it as HR for AI, in that, let's say I have an agentic system. That agentic system is going to be made up of multiple agents, and those agents are going to be calling multiple tools. We can think of each agent as maybe a human being, or maybe a department, right? And I want to be able to track the quality of what that agent is doing, the work that they're doing, and I want to be able to promote them if they're doing better, or I want to be able to remove them if they're doing poorly. And I want to be able to shut down any individual subset of this agentic system to update and adapt to it. Having governance in place so that as I'm changing or modifying operations, just as like modifying a HR setup in Workday, I need the equivalent for managing these agents. And that's really where governance comes in. Just as you govern people and employees, you need to govern the agents.
So Jed, help me understand then, is that, are you talking about localized? Are you talking about cloud native? To gain control, do you have to have it, can you really have it hybrid or in the cloud, or do you have to build it local?
I think it depends on the business. There are certainly some aspects, like let's say some aspects of banking, for example, where they will never be fully in the cloud. And that's been pretty clear over the last 20 years. As things have moved to the cloud, you'll have some things that always need to stay on-prem. We actually partner with NVIDIA to ensure that if you want to run models on-prem, we can help you deploy those and set them up inside the optimized way inside of NVIDIA GPUs. So there is that option. I think most of the time you can be completely secure and completely governed and completely safe with using the cloud-based models, as long as you have that AI gateway managed by your organization in between those models and your end users.
So right now, where do you think we sit on the spectrum among enterprises, right? Are we in the, like last year was, I guess, lots of betas and not much actual rolling out of these alternatives. Have we advanced much since the last time I sat in the MoneyPot and interviewed people?
I do think we've advanced quite a bit. So we just did a survey of 800 global leaders across a wide variety of different industries. And one of the results of that survey was that 77% of those leaders thought that their competitors were ahead of them in the AI race.
Interesting.
But they also, 86% said they were using LLMs at least somewhere in daily operations inside the organization. Now, maybe that's not a huge place yet, but you can see it becoming pervasive across organizations, across industries. Figuring out exactly what the best use cases are, I think people are struggling a little with that. And it's a funny reason. I think the reason that they're struggling with that is connected to kind of the consumer nature of the way it initially exploded. Everybody thinks it's a chatbot, basically.
What do you mean by that? What is that impediment? To me, it would seem like when we were given the gift of ChatGPT, I looked at that user interface and I thought, this is very peculiar. It doesn't do anything except for what I want it to do.
And it does all of that.
Right. And it was a single little line. I thought, this is the worst URL, the user interface that I've ever seen, when in reality, it reflected the nature of the beast, that it was given to us to use as we want. So what do people come to work? What assumptions do they come with then, having been on the consumer side?
Well, you'll hear a C-suite will say, okay, everybody's using AI. We need to use AI too. All right, what's a great use case? What's the simplest use case? And so everybody went out and built like an HR chatbot where you could ask questions of your HR documents.
One of the first things we did.
Right. And you're like, okay,
what's your PTO policy?
Okay, that's a nice use case. I have no idea how to justify or determine what the ROI of that is.
But it's there.
But it is there. It looks cool, and you did something.
And you could have done a microsite or a database to do it too.
Yeah. I think people are excited to be moving beyond that now. People are excited to be moving on beyond just a chatbot. But what they're realizing that it takes is a very deep knowledge of their business processes. In many ways, this is similar to an RPA type of thing, where, all right, I need to understand what are all the steps to, what's a nice example? Insurance claims, right? So if I look at like the entire insurance claim process, somebody sends in a claim, maybe somebody looks at it, realizes it doesn't have enough information, sends it back. Maybe that goes to some type of model to determine whether this automatically gets paid out or not. Maybe there's further investigations, there's a report written at the end, and then final claim gets paid out, put everything into legal. Now, all of that is not going to be turned into an agent, right? But agents can augment many steps of that life cycle, and it's easier to build out that agent-augmented life cycle if you very clearly understand all of those steps. And the people who understand all those steps are the lawyers and auditors that are working in them right now. So we need to give those people the ability to augment their own workflows using agents and Gen AI.
And I think it's been proven that you get the most value out of AI when it is linked to the subject matter expert, right?
Absolutely.
And that's the key, is
yes.
If you have somebody who understands the workflow, who understands the industry, who understands the compliance, the regulatory, and all the other issues that impact decision-making, you come much closer to a final usable model than if you try to go to let's say, a developer who's cold from the outside.
Have all the data engineers guess what everybody needs.
Exactly.
We saw that problem with big data where it was like, as soon as we get all of our data in order, we'll be able to start making cool business decisions with it. And it was like, no, that's completely backwards.
Right.
You need the business decisions to drive which data you need to put together.
Okay. So let's go back to the issue. Let me ask you a couple tough questions.
All right. I like that.
Rand came out with a study that said 80% of all deployments at scale have failed to date. This was recently released. Is that your experience, or are you seeing that, or what is the reality of that number?
I think a huge portion of that number is people buying 50,000 Microsoft Copilot licenses. And say, hey, how come everybody's not doing everything different? We gave him a Copilot license without any training or any control or any suggestions on what to do.
I gave him a piano and he still can't write like Paul McCartney. Exactly. I don't get it.
What a joke.
You got a piano.
Yeah. I think that number really speaks to the fact that you can't just throw these tools at people. You need to give them a framework. You need to give them new training. You need to give them assistance on the best way to use these things and examples. And to some extent, it's some type of centralized team that's going to lead the rollout of this stuff.
Now, help me with something, because I've thought about this a lot on the enterprise side, and I'm not the expert, so I've got an expert in front of me, so I'm going to ask you to bear with me. Now, the inconsistency of AI is an issue. In my world, it's an issue. I never trust it, but I consider it a great assistant. I think of it as a junior assistant who may not see the whole world yet, but may make mistakes, and I'm there to work on it. And as you said earlier, it's so affirmative and articulate that it can fool you into thinking that it's right when it's not right. I guess my question about consistency is that can that ever be baked out of it so that when you have agents working together, you don't compound an incorrect answer that then is institutionalized somehow with the agents working together? So I see it Yeah, I'm not working with agents. I'm working with LLMs, okay? But I see the inconsistency, and I think of the complexity of doing something like confirming money transactions overseas with agents, and how can you assure that it's right?
So I like I think it's Gorbachev initially, and then Reagan liked it so much he said it all the time. But trust but verify is a place I think we can get to. Right now I distrust and verify, but I think in the relatively near future we can have a trust but verify situation. And whatever you build should help you with that verification process. So that's both tracing the entire thought process of the agent and providing it the description of that thought process when it gives an answer back, as well as providing references to exactly where that agent pulled the information from. So let's say the bank transfer example, right? The agent should, for lack of a better word, provide receipts that you're able to link to the source systems and confirm that this actually did happen. And that also ties into agents having the correct tools. We talked earlier about, you don't want your agent to be your prediction model. You want your agent to be able to talk to a prediction model and then tell you to talk to it and then prove it. And then you can be a lot more sure that the statements it's making and the things it's saying are real.
Going on something in a career focus. And I always ask this in my podcast when I have somebody such as you as a guest who's in the thick of things. What has surprised you most since ChatGPT, since we saw our first consumer chatbots?
I think what surprised me most is, well, there's two camps of what is this going to do to jobs, right?
I was going to get to that. And I always hate going to that because it's the first thing often is asked.
There's a doom and gloom side of like, all right, this is going to drop 40% of jobs. We're going to have UBI for everybody. It's going to destroy the tax base. What are we going to do? I do think jobs will shift. People will be doing different things. But what I've been consistently surprised about is how empowering this is for very smart people who previously had a technical wall in front of them that did not allow them to do really, really cool things.
Tell me more. What was the wall and how did it fall?
I mean, the wall was code, right? The wall was code. The wall was math. And it's inspiring to watch people in my life who I never thought would build a website or create an app or be able to transfer their idea from, oh, I really need to find a developer, into an amazing, fully fledged, productionalized system. And it's amazing.
You so aptly articulated, I think before the interview, I told you when I first saw ChatGPT, it was the happiest day of my career because there had been a wall. Mm-hmm. And the wall is, I didn't understand technology to be able to, I could not communicate with technology. Exactly. I wasn't a coder, right? I didn't know how to write software. That's one thing. And secondly is that I was boxed in by my own limitations. I could not train other people to effectively write and communicate. It was something that came to me because I had spent hundreds of thousands of hours with editors working over my content and learning through that process and building a neural network in my brain that allowed me to tell stories convincingly. That's my belief. And when I saw it, I realized the empowerment, just what you're saying, the empowerment of seeing other people who could improve their human communications with other human beings through it. And I realized what a powerful tool. And anything that improves human communications has got to be for the good, unless it's just machines talking to each other.
Right. There's a pessimistic view that I don't share personally, but I think it's an interesting thing to think about. This pessimistic view is that the modern white-collar worker is essentially a GUI process that interacts in between different pieces of computer software. So I take information from Excel and I feed it into Salesforce or whatever, and that's like 80% of my job. I think human beings do more than that in the workforce personally, but that pessimistic view is that, oh, wow, why don't I just have a Excel agent and a Workday agent talk to each other and then we don't need the person anymore. I prefer to believe that people are inventive endlessly and will instead augment the way they work and provide a lot less of that busy work, yes, but then have the opportunity to work on much more interesting things.
Yeah, much more higher value things. And I do think, look, it's easy for us to say what jobs are going to be sacrificed. Right? Yeah. It's a lot harder to know what jobs will be created. In my personal opinion, I think there's huge pent-up demand for highly personalized entertainment, communications. For instance, like Uber. Before Uber, we thought the supply-demand curves for personal transportation was matched by taxis and by personal cars, automobiles, right? Then Uber comes along and we suddenly realize, I hear music playing, which could be our ending note, but Jed, it was great talking to you. I really appreciate your time. I think you have a lot of wisdom into these topics. Maybe that's not our ending cue, but I will bring it to an end. It's been a fascinating conversation. I think we share many of the same sentiments coming from completely different worlds, which is another thing that AI has done. I sit down with PhDs from MIT and talk about AI, and I talk to regular consumers about AI, and there's been a connection, a nexus. I never thought I'd be sitting here today as a communicator talking to somebody like yourself who's doing the actual deployment and development of technology. So I thank you. It's been a fascinating conversation. Best of luck. Let's stay in contact. Because
it's been a real pleasure. Have me on anytime.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to have you back as a guest for my studio.
Yeah, we could do it in 1 year, and you can ask me if it's gotten any more official.
Yeah, that's true. and a year. How about 2 weeks?
Yeah, no kidding.
Great. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks a lot, Greg.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This podcast is a production of Gregory. If you enjoyed our discussion today and want to continue exploring the transformative power of AI, please check out more episodes and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.